Hello everybody, and welcome to part 7, our penultimate study in the book of Galatians. If you think back so far, in Galatians, God has taught us that we've been freed from the burden of law keeping. That's what we've been freed from. But what is it that we've been freed for? Paul started to spell out the answer in verse 6. Our faith can express itself through love. In verse 13 of chapter 5, Paul calls this serving one another in love. This, we're taught, is a summary of the entire law. So is this where the whole argument in Galatians has led us? Back to the law. We're not freed from the law in order to freely sin. We're freed from the law in order to love. But when you love, the irony is you wind up obeying the law. The law and love are in their content much the same. If I'm serving you in love, then I won't tell you a lie, or I won't steal from you, or I won't gossip about you. But if that's the case, then what's the difference between love and law? There's a double difference. A difference of motive and a difference of relationship. Motivation or intention is part of every action. Picture this scene. A pretty girl drops an armful of books in front of a library. 3 young men rush to pick them up for her. The first, because he's just a genuine humanitarian who just wants to help. The second, because he's been looking at this girl with longing for months, and this is his opportunity to make an introduction. And the third, because he's failing his course, and she is the top of the class, and this is his chance to plead for a little coaching. What they do is identical, but they have 3 different intentions. 3 completely different motivations. Relationship, our standing or status with others, can also give meaning to our actions. Picture this scene. 2 athletes sprint as hard as they can around the cinder track of a sports oval. One is running hard because he's been selected for the competition, and he's motivated by his selection to perform his best. The second person hasn't been selected for the team yet. He is running that he might force the selectors to make a late additional selection, namely himself, even though it's against the rules. The difference in relationship colors their actions. The first is running with a full heart, eager to please the selectors who have chosen him. The second is trying to please them, to force them to pick him. Now the NIV version of the Bible uses the expression sinful nature in chapter 5. However, other versions use the word flesh. The Bible's concept of flesh differs from the way we would commonly use the word today. For the Bible, flesh has to do with living in this world. Flesh stands for what we are by nature, which is why the NIV refers to it as the sinful nature, and is right in doing that. We can see this meaning illustrated in the list in verses 19 to 23, where the sinful nature, or the flesh, is contrasted with living by the Spirit. So I say, writes Paul, live by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the sinful nature. Then Paul goes on to describe living naturally. There's a constant conflict between our old nature, the desires and urges that are part of our corrupt, sinful being, and the Spirit now living in us. That conflict continues for as long as we remain in our earthly bodies. The only way to get out of the conflict is to get out of our sinful nature. And the only way for that to happen is for Jesus to return, or for us to die. As long as we are here, we will still be fighting this battle. The fight, however, is not out there, it's within each one of us. Have you not felt the urge to be selfishly ambitious, to compete, to be envious, to be jealous, to slander? That's living naturally. Have you ever lost your temper, had a fit of rage, spread discord, created dissension, hated someone? That's all part of living naturally. What we do is we tend to make excuses for those things because they're not gross deeds of misconduct or sin. Picture this scene, a true scene this time. A large supermarket a while back had a blackout. It only lasted for about 3 minutes. In that time, many thousands of rands worth of goods were stolen from all over the shop. Now this was a shopping center in a well-to-do part of Cape Town. Given the opportunity, ordinary, honest people steal. That is living naturally. Now the Bible tells us, and the gospel informs us, that we must not live according to our nature, our sinful nature, our flesh, but according to the Spirit. Now that's unnatural for us. The beauty of this is that it's positive. The law tends to be negative. Don't do this, don't do that. But life in the Spirit, on the other hand, is positive. Be this, be that, live like this, live like that. So that loving, joyful, peaceful, patient, kind, good, faithful, gentle, and self-controlled living is something that we strive for in its positive sense. We've not been freed in order to indulge our sinful natures, but to serve one another in love. There will be conflict, and we must turn our backs on the works of the flesh. But positively, there is the fruit of the Spirit. Now that word fruit is singular. It means a crop, not different fruits. There are not meant to be kindness Christians and joyful Christians and goodness Christians and faithfulness Christians. Rather, the Christian is meant to be producing a crop of all these things. We're not passive in the process. We're to keep in step with the Spirit. As we fight the inner conflict, as we turn our backs on the flesh, as we pray and work at the crop of the Spirit, God works in us to produce love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. My friends, I hope that you can spend some time discussing what that means. I also hope that you'll spend some time reflecting in your own life and asking yourself, are these fruits evident in my life? Are they increasing in different ways? Where am I strong? Where am I weak? What do I need to work on? Ask the group to speak into your life. What do they see? Ask your husband or your wife or somebody that you're close to. Are these things that are true of me? Or does my life reflect more of the lists in the sinful nature? Where can I work? And then spend some time praying as a group and quietly by yourself and asking the Lord to please help you to be producing these fruits of the Spirit. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're living by the Spirit and because you're keeping step in the Spirit. Friends, I can't begin to stress how important this is and how many excuses we make as Christians, either for returning to the sinful nature on the one hand, or for not producing a rich harvest of the fruits of the Spirit on the other. It's a holistic crop. It's the whole thing. You don't get to pick and choose and say, I'm good at this and I'm not good at that. It's something that's meant to reflect in your life because the gospel's working itself out and transforming every part of your life. Hope you enjoy the rest of your time tonight.